This episode is brought to you by the AMAC app. The AMAC app is your go-to landing spot for up-to-date real news articles, polls, and interactive games, in addition to all of the great money-saving benefits that AMAC has to offer. Now, joining us today is one of the very first recipients of AMAC's Patriot Award. Elected to the U.S. Senate in 2018, Senator Marsha Blackburn represents the great state of Tennessee. Marsha's public service is dedicated to promoting opportunities for women and making America a more prosperous place to live. Senator Blackburn, welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to join you. Thank you so much.
Senator, with nearly 60,000 AMAC members in Tennessee, we are so thankful for you being a very strong and thoughtful and courageous conservative, a hallmark of your career in service. You have served both in the House and the Senate, and you know how the process works and how hard it can be to get things done in Washington. But if America is blessed in 2024 with a morally and fiscally responsible president, a conservative House and Senate, we could get a lot done. No one knows about the White House and House yet, but based on the numbers, it looks like Democrats must defend far more seats than Republicans in 2024. Do you think that the map could change markedly? Could Republicans win the majority in the Senate in 2024?
We are working hard to make certain that we're approaching good policies and are pushing forward good ideas that are an alternative to what the Biden administration is pushing forward. When I talk to Tennesseans, inflation, the price at the pump, the price at the grocery store, the cost of clothing for kids, you look at all of these costs and they are through the roof. And as one lady said to me recently, if people in D.C. think we've only got 5% or 6% or 7% inflation, they needed to go to the grocery store with her. And they needed to go shop for clothes for the kids with her. And they would see very quickly that you're talking about escalation rates of 20, 25, 30% in some products. And I had a county commissioner out in the east part of the state say, look, I drive 30 miles a day to work. And by the time I'm there and back, I can't fill up the gas tank and the grocery cart in the same week. So inflation is hurting communities. The southern border, the open border, and the gangs coming into our state, it is driving up crime. You look at what is happening with fentanyl and the fentanyl poisonings that are taking place. And one pill of that fentanyl can kill you. And our kids, it's the largest killer of kids 18 to 45 years old. And we're losing a lot of Americans to fentanyl poisoning. And this is just so critical. We lost 4,000 Tennesseans last year to fentanyl poisoning. It's all coming across the southern border. Every town's a border town. Every state's a border state. It's why our governor in Tennessee decided last week to send troops to the southern border to help Texas defend the border and to keep some of these drugs and gangs and sex traffickers and human traffickers out of our country and out of our state. So people are really consumed with these issues. They look at what is happening with the rapid change in this country. When you are talking about federal agencies that are still working from home and people can't get answers to questions, you're talking about the IRS wanting to hire 87,000 new agents. This affects people's lives. And our veterans that can't get veteran services, there's a 250,000 case backlog at the VA. So, promoting good policies that solve these problems, that is why you're going to see changes in these maps. And I think, yes, you see Republicans hold the House, take the Senate, and a Republican in the White House when we finish the 24 elections.
We do have a Biden administration that is completely unaccountable, somehow entitled to dictate, it seems, to the American people. And what they're dictating, and you've just mentioned, is really damaging us internationally, domestically, at our border with inflation, and abandoning rule of law. They're disrespecting both the Supreme Court, I think, and average Americans. But if 2024 looks hopeful, what about the next 19 months with all of the documents emerging from House subpoenas? Many are suggesting real public corruption by the Biden administration, and perhaps dating back to the Obama administration. Is the Senate likely to take on some of these issues and follow the House with oversight hearings? In other words, will any of your Democrat colleagues finally say public integrity in America matters more than politics, party, and profit, right? I know the answer might be no, but we can recall in the days of Watergate that Republicans joined Democrats for the sake of the nation. Could we see that ahead in the next 2 years?
We would love to see that, but we're not counting on it. And so it's up to us to make certain that as we go to the floor, we talk about our good ideas, and we also talk about the need for appropriate oversight. You know, it's important to realize we and the legislative branch of government, we have the responsibility of oversight. We cannot try anybody. We cannot indict anybody. We cannot prosecute anybody. That is not our role. And so it's up to us to highlight these issues. The House is continuing to do their investigation. And of course, they're required to give that information to DOJ. But we know this DOJ is most likely not going to do anything with the information. So what we'll have to do is wait until we have Republicans in control, and then we'll be able to push forward with holding some people holding them to account for Russia collusion. Look at what they did there. That was a figment of Hillary Clinton's imagination. They made this up. Then her campaign hired somebody to go pull this together. Then they got the media to buy into this story and push it on the American people, and ate up 4 years of trying to investigate Russia collusion. So people want to see all of this looked at. And I would say not only does much of this go back into the Obama years, it goes back into the Clinton years with the Clinton Foundation. So there is a lot to look at as to how we got off on this track, where the result is 2 tiers of justice, one for most Americans and one for the elites in Washington, D.C.
That's exactly right. We see how mainstream media is sort of ignoring a lot of what's happening and unfolding with the Biden family and the issues there. And the information that we're hearing from various whistleblowers. But I do agree with you that people, what they really do care about is how they're personally impacted. And we see that with Biden's inflation numbers and the high interest and low growth, that this is hurting seniors, especially AMAC members. Now, this debt ceiling fiasco, I'm praying that Biden is going to wake up, hopefully reopen parts of the energy sector. Do you see him exercising any fiscal responsibility and stopping the overspending, or do we have to wait until 2025 for that? Because it seems that this administration is really hurting seniors on fixed incomes.
And I give the House and Kevin McCarthy, Speaker McCarthy, and Leader Scalise credit for pulling together some concessions from the Biden White House when it comes to the debt ceiling deal. I do have a lot of concerns about that deal, the lack of enforcement capabilities in that deal, and wanting to see more done with cuts and keeping the caps on those cuts. This administration does not want to do anything that would curb spending. It is like they're into a spending lollapalooza. When you look at our nation's debt, if you go from George Washington all the way through George W. Bush, our nation acquired $10.6 trillion in debt. So then George W. Bush hands the keys to the Oval Office to Barack Obama. So you have Obama, Biden in charge. In their 8 years, they yet again doubled that debt, and you end up at about $22 trillion. President Trump comes in, he adds $1 trillion to it. COVID happens, you end up with a couple more $1 trillion to it. He hands the keys to Joe Biden, and in 2 years, Joe Biden has added $6 trillion to our nation's debt. Now, that is where we stand right now. We do not want to give. I'm one of those Republicans that does not want to give this administration the ability to burden future generations with untold amounts of debt. When you are sitting under that much debt, which amounts to about $95,000 per citizen in this country, what you are doing is capping opportunity for future generations. I think it's immoral to pass this much debt along. So I want to see some cuts. I want to see some reforming in the way our government works, using of technology, and making certain that we're achieving efficiencies.
Yeah, those are good things. Senator, it seems that no one will really touch the real drivers of our budgetary bloat and economic stagnation. That's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, our mandatory spending budget. Do you see a path forward to implement pro-growth strategies to make sure that our debt isn't growing faster than our economy?
We have to make certain that we have pro-growth strategies. That, it's important to realize that the federal government, nor any branch of government does not create jobs. It is the private sector's goal and responsibility to create those jobs. Government creates the environment in which jobs growth can take place. And there is a little formula that I use regularly when we talk about economic growth and drivers in our economy. We have to realize that less litigation plus less regulation plus less taxation equals more innovation and job creation. Now, that works every single time. And getting those fundamentals right so that you're looking at litigation and those compliance costs, you're looking at regulation and what government is going to do about regulation in an industry, and taxation, making certain that people pay what they are responsible for, but that you're not overtaxing the industries and the employers. That is something that is vital and important to do.
Senator, you've been a huge ally and proponent of price transparency in healthcare, as well as oversight and transparency for pharmacy benefit managers. With the increasing price of healthcare in the United States, it's important for patients, I think, of all ages to really know and understand what they're paying for, the costs of their healthcare and what they're buying for that cost. How will greater transparency help patients as they seek out affordable options for their health care? And how will Americans benefit from efforts to rein in the anti-competitive business practices of pharmacy benefit managers known as PBMs?
Right. And price transparency is something that people want. If they're going in to get an annual flu shot or a checkup or some type of diagnostic test, they want to know that price on the front end rather than getting that surprise bill after the fact. I had someone the other day who called me, and they had been to a doctor, and they said, well, we want you to do this one thing first so that we can then check you. They said, great, be happy to. They do it, and they got an additional $2,500 as a surprise bill. That is what people want to do away with because they need that transparency. And our Medicare Advantage enrollees, we hear a good bit about the desire for that transparency so they know what to expect and what to plan for. When it comes to pharmaceuticals and therapies and digital therapies, we hear from them regularly. The PBMs drive the price up because they split the savings from the drug manufacturer with the insurance company, not the patient. And so many are saying, let's get rid of these PBMs because our cost for pharmaceuticals continues to go up rather than going down. And they'll call and they'll check on it and they find out, well, it's the PBM that has set this price. And somebody says, well, but we never got a discount at the drugstore. No, and because the drug company gives the discount to the pharmacy benefit manager, and then they split that with the insurance company. So you're left paying a higher premium, a higher copay, and you don't see the savings. This is something that needs to stop. And I've been very active and a leader in addressing this situation. It is something that adversely impacts our families. It adversely impacts our seniors. And this is a practice that needs to be done away with. Every once in a while, we'll have something that we're working on, or maybe it's a piece of equipment. It could be a committee of church, and you'll say, well, this or that or whatever has outlived its usefulness. And I think that when you look at these PBMs and the high prices that are being pushed on Tennesseans, you have to ask that question and say, why is that benefit not going directly to the consumer? Why is it going to the pharmacy benefit manager?
Well, we do really appreciate your work there and leading us in that fight. AMAC members care greatly about healthcare price transparency and reducing the cost of healthcare. It is so important. So thank you for your great work there. We really appreciate that you joined us today, Senator Blackburn. Thank you so much for this time and for informing AMAC members on so many important matters. We appreciate you. Keep up all of the great work and look forward to having you join us again in the future.
Thank you so much. I'm always delighted to join you all and to join your members. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to more just like it. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, or by downloading the AMAC app. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful evening.